Hello, friends, and welcome to our next gathering for the Tau Kappa Epsilon Virtual Member Education Series. It is week 3. This is our second video in week 3, and today we're going to talk about something that is very relevant, whether you are a freshman in college right now or whether you have graduated and moved on and you're 20 or 30 years into your career, and that is your professional skill set, building those professional skills that are going to allow you to secure jobs, secure internships, and move your way through life, advancing up the corporate ladder and being successful and thinking about what your career looks like until you retire, really. And I hope that gets you excited. I hope those are things that you want to learn more about and take the time to learn about beyond even this video. But that's our focus today. We are going to cover a lot of different ground. We're going to talk about job searching, how to find jobs or internships that you want to apply for, how to format your resume, your cover letter to be the most effective and help you stand out and help you have an opportunity to interview for some of those jobs. We're going to then talk about preparing for the interviews. What are things that you can do to get yourself in the right mindset and to practice to answer interview questions effectively? We'll talk a little bit about how to dress. You know, everyone's got their own style, and I'm not here to condemn anyone or anything, but there are some certain principles that I believe you should abide by, and I think there's some pretty commonly held beliefs out there that I just want to make you all aware of. We're going to talk about communicating and what is the best way to enhance your ability to communicate from a written standpoint and from a verbal standpoint, and then we're going to talk a little bit about that career advancement, moving up the ladder, becoming a manager and then a director and then an executive. You know, what does that process look like? What are a few tips that are going to help you continue to move and not just get a job and stay in one place? We're going to start though with a guest. This is the same thing we did last week with our finance video, and I want to do this for a few reasons. One, because our Grand Histor Rob Guarini is very, very experienced in this realm. He is responsible as the CFO for Sysco Corp on Long Island. He's responsible for reviewing resumes and interviewing and hiring and at times firing. And he has a lot of really good institutional knowledge when it comes to some best practices here. And also, I just want to use his comments once again to frame the rest of our conversation, to be able to share with you early so that you can think about them as we get through the rest of this video and how those different lessons might apply to you. So we will move on, and we welcome now Frater Rob J, our Grand Histor. Rob, how are things out on Long Island?
Everything's all right, Frater Swenson. Thank you very much for having me this morning. Dealing with the chaos that is the coronavirus and COVID-19 out here on Long Island. But family's well. Hope you're well, your family's well, and everyone out there in TKE Nation's doing all right as well.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. And we'll get right into it. Our focus this week is on professionalism and on the professional skill set. And obviously you have a long TEAT career of being a volunteer, being on the Grand Council. But really, you know, the reason we want to talk to you today is because of the experience you have in the professional realm. Can you tell us a little bit about your career and about the experience you have and really the experience you have in hiring and reviewing resumes and interviewing and, you know, why you have some of this background knowledge?
Sure. So, I started out at Arrow Electronics as an accountant, worked my way up there to a finance manager, senior finance manager, director, made the move to Sysco Foods. And there I became a finance manager as well, director, and now the CFO for Sysco Foods. Over the course of my career, obviously managing a large areas of departments, whether it's AR, AP, accounting, finance, inventory control, credit, whichever, in the finance world, that comes obviously hiring, right? And people are the greatest asset to any organization, and especially organizations that are successful. So going out there, reading resumes, interviewing people, looking for skill sets, looking for people for the right fit, for the roles that we have, as well as the personality behind the roles. is very important. So I have a lot of experience in bringing people in, interviewing them, and kind of seeing how they fit within the organizations that I've been involved in.
Awesome. And what are some common mistakes that you see off the bat when you're looking through resumes or someone sits down for an interview that hopefully, by watching this, our members can avoid?
Yeah. So one of the things is people tend to overanalyze, right? So I'm not saying it's not good to analyze. You absolutely should. You should do your homework, do your research, make sure you understand the company, make sure you understand the role and the responsibilities inside that role, and make sure that you're willing to do the roles and the responsibilities that are inside that role. And some of the mistakes that you just see is that people overanalyze. So they come in and they just continue to talk and talk, and I'm always followed from the point of be quick, be good, be gone, right? I mean, make sure that you answer the question, that you portray yourself in a professional manner, and then you're out of there, right? You want to move on to the next question, speak with confidence, not cockiness. That's another big thing, right? And then and just make sure that you're aligned, and you have to make sure you're listening, right? Sometimes you answer the question and you just start going on, and it's not really the question that was intended. You didn't answer the question that was intended. So you just got to pay attention. You got to be quick, be good, be gone, and then just make sure that that you have that camaraderie with the person who you're interviewing with across from you.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier your life is a little chaotic right now because of the coronavirus. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. And a lot of individuals who are graduating college have had their job plans thrown into chaos. A lot of people who already have jobs have had the same thing. When we're looking at the circumstances right now, and really any situation where the job market is tight, there's obviously a premium on setting yourself apart, elevating yourself over the competition. What are some successful methods or strategies you've seen for potential employees who have been able to do that?
So one is, I talk about the technical skills versus the personality skills and things like that, right? Right now, I will tell you that there is a market right now for the technical, right? We're all working from home in this remote environment, and being comfortable with various different systems, being comfortable with various different platforms, being comfortable with different types of ways to go about your day, especially in the challenging situation that we're in, right, is important. So I would just say that from this perspective right now, I'm really looking for people who understand the technical side of things, right? Do you know all these, different social media platforms and all these different systems, again, just like I said, are coming into play, which we've never had to use before, right? You used to come in, go into your company's, I'll call it dark side, right? Whatever it is, the system that they use, and now all of a sudden you're asked to do things that are outside your comfort zone, right? So making sure that stepping outside your comfort zone, willing to take on more responsibility than what you're accustomed to, right? Expanding your horizons, expanding your network. Those are some of the things that I'm looking for, especially right now, because I need the Swiss Army knives. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, right? I need the Swiss Army knives. I can't have a person who's just focused on one area, knows one thing, is an expert in one thing. You need to have that broad scope of the business and the broad scope of everything that's going on right now. Because I don't know whether or not, if you're just an accountant, right? I also need someone who can forecast and someone who can look out, right? So I'm really looking for a jack of all trades right now. So you being able to expand yourself and your skill set, and showing that there's more to offer than just what you kind of graduated and got your degree in, is someone that we're really, someone that we're looking for right about now.
And that, I think, lends itself well to what we all experience in a fraternity. And I know that's one area that you're passionate about, and one area you get a lot of questions about, which is how can we use our experience as TKEs and showcase that on a resume and in a job interview to make ourselves more appealing?
Yeah, so I've talked about this before a little bit on the podcast that I did on finance, and And right now there is such a level of talent that you get from being in the fraternity, for the fact that, if you're an e-board member, or if you're a Pretenus or a Chrysophilus, right, you are running a business. I mean, I understand we're fraternal. I understand that we like to have a good time and the social aspect of it, but you are still running a business, and you get to put on your resume the fact that you held an e-board position, right, and that if you were, again, I'll come back to a president or vice president or treasurer, that you've run a business, and that is so vital in today's world, because you have a different sense of responsibility, you have a different sense of of wherewithal, you have a different sense of looking into the future and figure out, okay, how does our organization look going forward so we can strive to be successful, right? Those are unbelievable uh, experiences that you gain in the fraternity that will help you going forward, help you in any job interview, or help you in any task that working as a team, right? I mean, we have such a big team camaraderie out there today, and these are vital skills that the fraternity teaches you, and something you should absolutely harp on when you're on your interview, talking about the fraternity and that aspect of the skill set, right? That you had, that you were an FI Pretenus and you had, 10 chairs under you, and how you helped those chairs grow, develop, and help the organization be successful. Those are some of the things that are very important when I look at a resume. And I'll tell you right now, I always bring someone from a Greek organization in for an interview, especially I'll bring someone from the fraternity, from TKE, right? So looking at that, and I understand how they've gone through their college career. I understand how the things that they've had to do, right? I understand all the rigmaroles of dealing with campus and dealing with ambiguity and all this kind of stuff. That those are experiences that you do not get anywhere else.
Absolutely. And I want to jump in a little further to the interview process itself, because that can be very intimidating and it can be very stressful for people going into it. How would you suggest preparing for a face-to-face interview so that some of that stress can be alleviated and you're a little more confident going in?
Yeah. So one, I said before, do your research, right? If they're a Fortune 500 company, make sure you understand their financials. Make sure that you understand what their culture is. That's a big piece of it, right? Make sure you understand what organizations that they're also associated with. That type of research on the company itself it obviously builds your confidence, and it helps you prepare. The other thing I will say is make sure you understand the role and the responsibilities. I can't tell you how many times people come in and, we provide them with the job description on the roles and responsibilities, and then I ask a couple questions around that, and they're not prepared for that, right? So I think you really need to understand. And if you're not clear on the roles and responsibilities, do not be afraid to send an email to the HR person who's setting up the interview and saying, hey, can you just, please explain a couple things to me? Because a lot of companies will have a phone screen before you come in and sit down, right? So you get all those questions out of the way from that perspective. Absolutely be on time. Don't mess around with that. Show up 10 minutes early. I'm a big fan, obviously, wear a suit, right? So this way you look professional, and you get all those things. It also builds your confidence as well from that perspective. And be comfortable. Again, comfortable, confident, but not cocky. I think you have the ability to go in there, understand it, and sell yourself. Sell yourself on what you did, sell yourself on what you want to do, right? Understand your strengths and weaknesses. Those are questions that always come up. So understand your strengths and weaknesses, right? And then just make sure that you build a easy conversation relationship with the person across from you, right? Shake hands. How was your day? Just get something going to make you feel a little bit more comfortable in the interview process with the person across from you, right? Because if you're nervous, and you're going to be nervous, I get that. But if you try to get rid of that nervousness before you walk in the door, that person across from you is looking for that sense of confidence that this person can do the job.
Yeah, and that's, I think, great advice. And really, a lot of times the persona that you portray is just as important as the words that are coming out of your mouth. So, um,
And the other thing too,
yeah,
for Alex, the other thing too is have questions prepared. That's the other thing, right? No matter, make sure you have about 5 to 7 questions prepared. I guarantee you, probably 3, 4 of those questions are going to be answered during the course of the interview. But when I'm coming across from you says something like, "All right, do you have any questions for me?" and you say, "Hey, no, I'm good, thank you very much." I tend to be like, I don't know if this person really understands what we're trying to do here, right? So just make sure that you have some questions prepared, because that again, you're thinking about the role, you're thinking about the responsibilities, you have questions about the company. Even if it's a culture question, I mean that's a great question to ask, right? Is what is a typical day like, or what do you do here for the organization for fun? I mean that's an okay question to ask, right? But just make sure you're prepared to ask questions.
yeah, for sure. The last question I have for you is more geared toward once you already have a job, and obviously you land a job out of college and you want to move up. So you've illustrated how you've been able to do that throughout your career in separate companies. What can individuals do to stand out to their superiors once they're already locked into a job so that they continue to advance, get more responsibility, get bigger titles, better pay, and continue that career climb?
Yeah, I think so. One thing is definitely I want to use the word volunteer, but I want to use the word. Um, I guess it's nominate yourself, right? Don't be afraid to take on more responsibility, right? Don't be afraid to don't be afraid to. Here's another thing that I like. If you don't understand something, say something. Do not try to figure it out on your own. It shows me you're thinking. It's showing me, okay, make recommendations. That's another big one, right? If someone gives you something to do, right, it's okay to do it, but then say, hey, what about this? What about this? Did you think about this? Or whatever it is, right? And make sure you make recommendations. Another thing is build the relationships. Build the relationships with the people that you work with. Build the relationships with people above you. Get them mentor is another big one, right? So as I was able to do as I was growing up, I was getting people who I would align myself with people who were successful, right? And then you go in meetings with them, or you schedule some time with them, and you stop by with them in the morning and often you talk about the career and where you want to go. People want to grow other people's careers. I mean that, as an executive leader, that's part of what I enjoy doing, right? So standing out, stepping up, coming to me and showing me that you want to do that, is it makes me back you. And then when you're going on an interview and you're applying for other roles and higher roles, right? I'll vouch for you from that perspective. But it's definitely volunteering or getting more experience, stepping outside your comfort zone, right? If you're someone who is, hey, this is what I know, but I would like to learn that. Can I go to that department and learn that for a month? Don't be afraid to ask any questions once you get in the door. I will tell you that I would probably give yourself a good 6 months to a year in your current role, especially if you're going to a new company, so you can understand day to day and what that is in the new company that you're working for. Understanding that for a year before you start going in there and asking for promotions and doing this and doing that and all those kind of things, because that also can be a turn off, right? Hey, you've been here 3 months, I want to raise, or I've been here 6 months, I want to raise, right? So build yourself, build your name. Your name is your credibility. Build your name, and then from there, start to build your network. Start to build your experiences.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. And that's, it all plays a different role. Everything we talked about obviously plays a different role into how successful you are or how successful you aren't in your career. And appreciate the words of wisdom, appreciate getting into your mind a little bit about how a lot of these things piece together. And we'll let you get back to your day, Frater Rob. So thank you again, and we'll talk to you again soon.
I appreciate it, for Alex. Thank you very much. I want to thank everyone out there in TKE Nation, and please stay safe.
Thank you. And thank you again to Frater Guarini for his help. I think you can see just by the passion that he speaks with about this topic, it's something he's very knowledgeable, with, and hopefully you took that seriously and gained a lot of perspective for the future. I do want to share some pieces on my end now, though. These are things that, that I've gathered throughout my career, and also pieces that I've done research on and prepared specifically for this video. But there's a few different topic areas that I want to touch on that I think echo a lot of what Frater Rob had to say, but also might offer a little different look at something that he shared. So we're talking first about the search. That's the first step in getting a job, obviously, right? Is looking for one and figuring out what you want to do. The first step in that is understand what you want, understand what you're looking for. Are you looking for a job with a specific company or with a specific title in a specific location? And I think that that's very important, because that's going to help you as you go through that search and narrow down your prospects. I also think it's important to understand, what's my plan B? What's my plan C? Maybe you're really passionate about finding a job in digital advertising or digital marketing, and you can't find anything, but there's a really, really good job that you're qualified for, and they want to bring you in, and it's a social media marketing job. It's not the exact realm that you were looking for, but the ability to get in with a company and start working there and advance through their corporation might be more valuable to you at that time than finding a perfect role. So think about that. Think about what you're looking for, and think about, I guess, what you would settle for lack of a better term. And that doesn't have to be a negative thing. Your next most important thing when you're looking for a job is using your network. And I think a lot of people confuse their network for their 5 or 6 closest friends, and maybe their family, maybe their extended family. Your network extends so far beyond that. And that's why LinkedIn is so popular. LinkedIn is there for you to utilize, because it shows you who are friends of friends of friends. You have your connections on LinkedIn. And if you don't have a LinkedIn page, I guess I should start there. Please create one and add any experience you have to it and start adding connections. But it also shows you who are the connections of my connections and who are my third degree connections. You can utilize those people as well. Maybe you're applying for a job at Google, let's say, and you don't know anyone that works at Google, but you figure out through LinkedIn that your best friend from college, their second cousin works for Google, and maybe they see their second cousin once a year at a family reunion. But to reach out to that friend and say, hey, would you be willing to make a phone call for me? Would you be willing to reach out on my behalf? And hopefully, if it's a good friend, he or she'll say, yeah, absolutely, I'd be happy to. They'll connect you, and boom, there's another connection, and there's someone who might be able to serve as a referral for you at Google. Or maybe it's someone you went to college with who you weren't super close with, you weren't best friends with, you were cordial enough, and they work at a company you didn't even realize existed that has a job opening. Those are the types of connections that lead to success. The worst that's going to happen if you ask for a referral is they're going to say no, or they're not going to respond to you. And then you move on, and you're no worse off than you were when you started the interaction. But the best thing that's going to happen is they're going to put in a good word for you with the hiring manager, with HR. And a lot of times, I think in most cases, really, those referrals are what's going to get you in the door. They're going to get you to the second or third level, get you an interview, and that's where you can take the time to shine. So utilize your network and understand what all that network entails as you search for a job, as you look for an internship. Just being in college and being in TKE, those are 2 huge networks right there. So start there. And the TKE network is massive, and I don't think enough people utilize it. Reach out to TKEs from across the country that you connect with on Facebook or LinkedIn, or meet at an RLC, and utilize them for referrals, for advice. And I think you're going to be a lot more successful than if you just go about it on your own. Last thing on this topic then is understanding the different job boards that are out there, the different websites that show jobs. I think the 3 big ones, I know the 3 that are pushed the most are Indeed, Glassdoor, and LinkedIn. Those all have really good search features. They all have really efficient ways of filtering out jobs within a certain radius. So utilize those, but also a lot of industries have their own industry-specific job boards, whether you want to be a teacher or an accountant or a journalist. Understand those products at your disposal. And that goes back to your network. And that goes back to knowing people who have been through the process already. It can help guide you to the right spot so that you're finding the best you're finding the best jobs that are available, but you're also finding the most jobs that are available, because not every company will post on every website. Moving forward to the resume and the cover letter. These are obviously a huge piece that go into getting an interview in the first place and getting a job. And I know Frater Rob talked about these as well. A few points that I want to emphasize. One is keywords within the job posting. So read the job posting in detail before you submit your resume and cover letter, because as we know, a lot of resumes are reviewed by computer software, by robots, for lack of a better term, and those review services, they're looking for keywords, and that's how they filter their resume to the next level. So if you have a word like cross-functional, or like management, or digital, if there are words that continue to appear in a job posting, make sure that they appear in your resume, because it might just be a quick scan where all they're looking for is the word advertising or marketing in your resume, and that's going to get it to at least the next level. Those secrets, those keys are right there in the job posting almost 100% of the time. So make sure you're doing that at a high level, and not just hoping that the resume you put together is going to line up directly with the job. Emphasize your experience. Emphasize your relevant experience to the job posting. Don't feel like you need to give equal weight to a job that you've held for 3 years and working at Papa John's delivering pizzas for 6 months while you were in college. Those don't need equal time on your resume, and I would encourage you to not put the Papa John's on there at all if you can help it. But really, focus on the experience that is the most relevant for the job that you're working on. This is your elevator pitch. This is your chance to impress someone or impress a computer software to get you in the door with this company. You're not going to get hired based on your resume, but it is going to allow you an opportunity to meet face-to-face and showcase your skills. So really focus in, again, on the job posting, what it's asking for, what it's emphasizing for requirements, and build your resume and cover letter around that. Proofread. That should go without saying, and it's not just because, it's a bad look to have a misspelling or a punctuation error in your resume, but in a lot of cases, for better or worse, you might be the best candidate by far, the most qualified, but you accidentally capitalized a letter that didn't need to be capitalized. And those hiring managers, they look at that as a lack of attention to detail. They look at that as something that you didn't take the time to ensure that your materials were in the best spot. And so you're not going to be the right fit for their organization. So it's much more than just a misspelling. It's an insight into your level of preparedness and your level of detail. So ensure that there are no errors in your professional materials. Making adjustments, bouncing back one point, I personally think that you could revise your resume for every job that you apply for. Yes, you'll have a standard, you'll have a copy of a base resume that you're building off of, but you shouldn't be using the same resume to apply to one company and another company, or one job and another job, because those requirements are going to be a little different. And the things that you need to highlight to impress the individuals that are reviewing resumes are going to be different. So don't be afraid to make a new copy or tweak things just a little bit with each job that you apply for. And then creativity, as far as visual creativity. I think that people hold all different viewpoints on this. Personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with going outside of maybe a traditional Microsoft Word resume, but you also need to be smart when it comes to not going too far. Don't blast your resume with color. Don't put your name upside down because you think it looks quirky and it's going to make you stand out. I think those things are probably turnoffs more than they are something that gets managers excited. I want to show a resume here that I just found online that I think is a really good mix of the two. It's formatted a little differently. There's a little more creativity with the spacing, with how things are organized. But it's not too much. It's very easy to read. It's very easy on the eyes. It doesn't make you have to put on sunglasses. Something like this, I don't mean replicating this design exactly, but something like this I think is appropriate because it shows you have a little bit of that creativity, shows that you're willing to step outside the box a little bit, but it also shows that you're reserved and you're intelligent about your professional material. So I just wanted to show you that. There's 100 other examples of resumes, a million other examples of resumes just like this online. But this is one I found that I thought did a really good job of blending some creative aspects with some more traditional aspects. When we talk about then getting to the interview, this should be the next step. Once you submit your resume, hopefully you get a call or an email that says, we want you to come in. Biggest thing here is practice. Practicing with yourself, practicing with a family member, practicing with a mirror, practicing with your dog. Speaking out loud and speaking in a way that conveys your knowledge and conveys your confidence, that's going to be more important, I think, than any words that come out of your mouth at a job interview, unless those words are absolutely ridiculous. But your ability to communicate effectively, which we're going to talk about a little later, is going to carry a ton of weight. Your body language, if you walk in with a smile, those types of things, those are lead indicators right off the bat where they're going to make a decision. I like this person or I don't like this person. And the way you get there is through practice. There's nothing wrong with taking an interview for a job that you don't intend to take. Maybe someone reaches out to you, or maybe you throw an application in just to see what happens. That's practice. Interviewing in any setting is practice. Go to mock interview workshops. Go to mock interview workshops on your campus. Utilize the mock interviews at the regional leadership conferences. If you've been to those are huge opportunities to meet with professionals who can help coach you on how to interview. And that is invaluable when it comes to your ability to walk in when it does matter, when the time is right, to deliver a product. That's what you're doing, right? Your product is yourself. You're trying to sell that product to the hiring manager and to that company. You have to polish it up. You have to spend some time on it. You can't just roll out of bed and knock it out of the ballpark. So really practice. I always encourage people to prepare notes for the interview. And these can be notes that you take with you. Even if you're going to take a notebook, a pad folio into an interview, there can be a page in there that's just a couple of quick bullet points that are reminders of things that you want to talk about. If you've interviewed before, what questions do you commonly get asked? You can look that up online as well, the 10 most common interview questions, right? Little things like, tell us about yourself, tell us about your professional experience, or tell us about your last job. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? When is a time that you had to resolve a conflict or respond to adversity? Those are pretty common. And I think you're going to find a lot of those exist in most interviews you'll take part in. And obviously there's going to be some questions specific to the job at hand and to the title at hand, but having answers prepared, not memorized. You don't want to sound like a robot, but having answers prepared and rehearsed and knowing in the back of your mind, when they ask you about a difficult situation you faced, what situation you're going to go to and how you want to talk about that. That's going to, again, it's going to help you come across confident, well-spoken, rather than saying like, trying to rack your brain and think of an example on the fly. So that just goes back into the preparedness, to the practice, and the emphasis on making sure that you take time to get ready for the interview. And then ask really good questions of the company that's interviewing you. That is not how much money am I going to make? It is not, will you pay for relocation? Those questions can come up at some point, and obviously they should come up before you accept a job. But the good questions are asking about company culture, asking about successful traits of employees at that company. If there were employees that were not successful, what were one or two things they did that really took them out of the running or helped them to lose their job? You're trying to understand what it's going to be like walking in the door day one. You're going to trying to understand, what traits you need to display to be successful at this company. And the fact that you're asking those questions, I think, goes a long way with the interviewers, that you've thought about these things and you care about these things. Another question that I like to ask is, why do you enjoy working here? Why have you spent 5, 10, 15 years with this company? That gets the interviewers talking about themselves, which everyone loves to do. And it also, again, it shows that you have an interest in someone other than yourself. And it shows that you have an interest in the company culture and the team that you're going to be walking into. So asking good questions, I think a really good interview can be derailed with really bad questions. Know what you want to ask ahead of time and prepare yourself accordingly. When it comes to dressing yourself, professional attire, I put a picture of old Bex up there. He's always looking dapper. There's a few principles. And again, I mentioned at the beginning, everyone has their own style, and I'm not here to knock your style or tell you that you're doing it wrong. But I think having a few principles in mind, especially if you're going into a job interview or if you're trying to go into a situation where you're building a new connection, I think there are some things you can do to help yourself. So the first thing to really understand is how to match suits, shirts, and ties. There's a resource I'm going to provide at the end of this that will hopefully you'll check out and will be effective. But, clashing patterns, that's a little difficult to digest at times. I think if you have a pinstripe suit and a checkered or a plaid shirt and then a tie with little flowers on, that's just messing. It's messing with your eyes, basically, of the person, and it just comes across a little strong. So I always think, one pattern, right? Whether that's your suit, your shirt, or your tie, if you can pull it off, or if it's the right scenario and the right colors, you can probably get away with a pattern shirt with a pattern tie. I wouldn't go beyond that. Hone in your flair, and when I say flair, I mean, Beckham's doing a great job in that picture of modeling it. Your tie bar, your lapel pin, your pocket square, your jewelry, any bracelets, rings, necklaces, anything like that. Don't go all out for a job interview or for a meeting with a new connection. I would say less is more in that respect. I always think of, one lapel pin max, and different people have different viewpoints on that. But if your lapels look like a Christmas tree, I think it comes off a little strong. Same thing with the tie bar. If you're going to go with one, keep it conservative. Same thing with a pocket square. So just, again, the more conservative you can be and still show some of your creativity, the better. And then lastly, colors. Understand the big colors when it comes to suits and ties and everything are blue or navy, black, white, and brown. And understand how those colors play off each other. Understand what works together, what doesn't work together. You're going to wear black shoes with blue pants and a brown belt. I hope not. But that can be another indicator for a hiring manager, for someone who's looking to be impressed by you or not impressed by you. That's another visual thing that doesn't require you to say a word, where people are going to make a judgment, and they're going to make a judgment, fair or unfair, that's going to affect their perception of you and what success you might have in impressing that person. So I'm not going to go through the whole deal here, but there's a resource at the end I'll share. And I think, just having a basic understanding of how to coordinate those things will lead to some more success in that realm. And then that last piece there, especially when you're going into a job interview, scale it back, pull back a little bit. Conservative, white shirt, solid tie, black suit, gray suit, brown suit, blue suit, whatever's best for you. I would keep it very conservative, specifically with job interviews. And then once you have a little more creative freedom, once you have a job, if you're wearing a suit to work every day, or you're going to a ritual for the fraternity, sure, maybe ramp it up a little bit, mix some different colors in. But really, when it's time for a job interview, the more conservative, the better. You're not going to get hired because of a suit that you wore or a shirt and tie combination you wore, but you might get kicked out, or you might get crossed off a list for a suit and tie and shirt combination that you wore. Moving now into effective communication. So this is a little more in the realm of you already have a job and you're already in on the ground floor, and how can you be the best version of yourself? The three big things are written communication. So typing up documents or handwriting letters or submitting minutes or notes for a meeting. Getting good at that and understanding some of the do's, some of the don'ts. Have a good grasp on grammar. Use the proper form of there and to, and know when to use a comma versus a dash and a semicolon. I know that might sound a little silly, but it also goes a long way in impressing people who are above you, who you're submitting those materials to, and that goes right into your email correspondence. There's a time and a place for casual emails, right? And I think we've all exchanged probably one or two in our lifetimes, but there is a time and place for formal correspondence. And as Teeks, we say Dear Frater, and we say yours in the bond, and we usually go with that. And that's always a safe way to start an email and end an email. But sometimes you might have to go with Mr., or sometimes you end with sincerely, or there's a difference between an email you sign with your full name versus you just sign with your initials. That takes practice, and that takes failing at times. It takes seeing some good examples and some bad examples. But don't discount the ability of your written communication to affect your career, to affect your ability to move forward or move backward in your life and in your professional setting, because people look at those things, and people are always looking for ways to either pick you apart or be impressed. And your ability to communicate effectively through email and through written communications is right up there. And then lastly, public speaking. I think if there's one thing that I could tell you to do, to a skill to build that is going to help you in your career, it's public speaking. And even if you're not in a job that requires it, even if you're not in a position where you're speaking to 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 people on a regular basis, maybe you're just speaking to a computer screen like this. The ability to speak confidently and intelligently and prepare and rehearse, that is a very rare skill. And I think we all know people who struggle with it. We can all think of really bad public speeches that we've seen, or we can all think of horrible presentations that someone in a class has given or someone in the fraternity has given, and maybe you were that person. And that's okay, because like everything, it is a skill. You are not born with the ability to speak in public. You are not born with the ability to deliver a killer presentation with no practice. That takes time, and it takes energy, and it takes effort. And once again, it takes some failure. And I think public speaking could be its own workshop. It could be its own 8-lesson education series if we wanted to dive into it. And that's something I think that we'll look into in the future. But for now, I would really encourage you, if you're trying to start a career or advance in your career, get good at public speaking, because your ability to speak, again, confidently and coherently is going to be very, very important, whether it's in an interview, whether it's in a job presentation, or whether it's just in a face-to-face meeting with your boss. That's going to go a long way. And if you're stumbling over words, saying like, whatever, that's a knock against you. So practice, get good at it, understand what makes a good speaker, what makes a bad speaker. And hopefully that's going to help you as you move through your career. The last section, is moving up that corporate ladder, and what are some things you can do. And for the 15th time, I know every company is different. I know every job role is different, and there are things that apply to certain jobs that have no bearing at all on other jobs. But these are just a few basic ideas that I put together that I think are valuable. First thing, man, it sounds simple, but it is very, very, it's much less common than you probably realize. Show up on time and do your job. Do what is asked of you. Do it on time. Meet your deadlines. Stay until you're supposed to stay. Show up when you're supposed to show up. That alone is going to put you in the top 20% of all employees at your company. I all but guarantee that. So when you're thinking about, okay, it's my first job, I just graduated college, it's my first day, I'm nervous. How do I not screw this up? How do I impress my boss, my peers? Show up on time. Take notes and do what is asked of you. And that's going to put you in a really good position that first 2 or 3 months, where everyone says, hey, this person's a hard worker. They take detailed notes. They listen when I talk to them. And I haven't had a single issue yet with them showing up late or leaving early. Boom. You just made a fantastic impression on the rest of the company by just doing what is expected of you. But don't discount the ability of others to screw that up, and make sure that you are not one of those people. Learn outside of your job. It doesn't matter what company you're in. Every company has different departments. Every company has different job roles. And the more that you can learn about those different roles, the more you can learn about how those departments function. I don't care if you're an accountant and we're talking about the IT department. Maybe you find the ability through learning outside of your job to fix a printer or get rid of a copier jam so that you don't have to call IT every time that happens. But if you take the initiative to learn outside of your job, if you reach out to people in other departments, say, hey, I was just wondering how this works, or how you came up with this idea. Once again, you're not only going to make yourself better and improve your own skill set, you're going to impress people around you, and managers and directors and those that are in charge of the decision to hire, fire, give raises, give bonuses. They're going to take notice of that, and you're going to position yourself very, very well in your company. Learn to lead as a follower. This is another really, it's a trait that requires some skills, just like public speaking, because it's not something people are comfortable with. If you're early in your career, if you're young, again, just got out of college, you're probably going to be on a team probably going to be in a group of people, and a lot of those people are probably going to have more experience with you. But the more you can step up and lead within that team, the more you can step up and lead your bosses at times. Get information that they might not have. Find ways that you can make them better without seeming arrogant or smug about it, obviously. No one likes to be shown up. But the more you can do that, the more you're going to stand out as a leader, as someone who takes initiative, and as someone who can confidently be promoted and given a raise and given more responsibility, because you're showing that you can take that on. If you show up and do your job and you learn outside of your job, and then you start leading others to hit their goals and learn outside of their jobs, no one's going to have any problem giving you more power, more responsibility if you handle that appropriately. And then the last thing there, which we already talked about earlier, is build your network. Use every opportunity to network with more people, meet more people inside your company, outside your company, peers in your profession that work for other organizations, meet with them, learn from them. That's only going to assist you in finding a new job or finding a better job, or getting offered a job without even applying for it, right? People come to you and they say, hey, I have this job I think you'd be really great at. That only happens when you go outside of your bubble and meet new people and show them that you provide value. That was it for my spiel. A few pieces to keep educating yourself. First, you can find hundreds of different resume tips sites out there. The one I found that I thought was really helpful was right from Indeed, which is a job board we talked about earlier. It's 10 tips. But again, do the research, and there's going to be some conflicting info out there. So you're going to have to figure out what works for you. I thought Indeed's list was really good. If you type in modern suit infographic into Google, there's an infographic with a cartoon looking guy that comes up that says the perfect modern suit. A lot of really good advice in there about how to dress and how to build your wardrobe. And so I would just encourage you. It's been in the RLC workbook the last few years for those who have attended, but go check that out. Spend 5 minutes on it, and maybe you'll learn something that you didn't know before. The Dark Knot, that is a website that I found that is, it's clothing, it's attire, ties, accessories, things of that nature. But they have some really good photos of good looking suits, of good suit, shirt, tie combinations. They also have a YouTube channel where they talk about those things. And that's where I really want to point you is their YouTube channel, where there's a ton about dressing for success and matching patterns and matching colors and different types of suits and shirts and ties. Take advantage of that. If you're trying to build that starter wardrobe, maybe buying your first suit and your first few dress shirts, I think that's a good place to go. And then lastly, find a professional mentor, someone that you can share your resume with, someone you can share your cover letter with, someone who you can practice interviewing with, someone like Rob, who has a ton of experience hiring people, reviewing professional materials, who can say, hey, I see this a lot and you did it and it's a mistake, but I'm catching it for you now before you send this in. Find someone like that. Find 10 people like that. The more, the better, but that's going to help you much more. As was the case last week with the financial mentor, your professional mentor is going to help you much more than any article you could read, any video you can watch, and any interview that you can listen to. So I hope you do that, or start to do that, and start to think about those people in your circle who can serve as your professional mentor moving forward. Hope that was helpful. Hope you walk away with a better sense of what it's going to take to get a job or an internship, and what it's going to take to be successful long-term in your career. I am not the end-all be-all on this, though. I have some knowledge that people have passed on to me that I'm now passing on to you. But again, find other resources, find other ways to educate yourself. Don't go into this job search process blind. You're only going to enhance your opportunity to put yourself in a really good position. So I thank you. I'll talk to you again next week. Take care.